Hey guys, welcome back to Coffee and Questions. All right, we've been going through talking about the reliability of the Bible and talking about all these reasons why we can trust it. And one thing that I said is that the Bible does not contradict itself, having been written by so many different people and over such amount of time and over so many different continents, it doesn't contradict itself. It's that some people think that it does, and one of those situations in which they think it does contradict itself revolves around the question of, can God lie? And so I wanted to look at that today. I wanted to look at, can God lie? And to give you the short answer, just right up front, quick, short answer, no, God cannot lie. So that is the conclusion. If you want to hear the rest of it, stick around. So to understand where this question comes from, to understand the element of it, we have to go to a chapter of the Bible, and it's found in 1 Kings chapter 22. And you can read the whole thing for yourself. I'll just kind of give you the summary of it. You see, there are these two kings, King Ahab and King Jehoshaphat, and they both have their own really long backstories that you need to read about. But basically, King Ahab is evil. He kills people because he wants vineyards. He hunts down and kills the prophets of God. He does a bunch of evil things. He's just a bad guy. On the other hand, you have King Jehoshaphat, who actually was a pretty decent king. He's the king of Jerusalem. All right, so you have the king of Judah, which is King Jehoshaphat, and you have the king of Israel, which is Ahab. And Jehoshaphat's a pretty good guy. He's got one major problem, is that he hangs out with King Ahab, and that's going to come back to bite him and his ancestors in the future, but that's another story. So anyways, those two are hanging out at King Ahab's palace, and King Ahab really wants to go to war with Ramoth Gilead. And he asks Jehoshaphat, will you come with me? Can we do this together? Come on, man. Let's go out and attack Ramoth Gilead. And Jehoshaphat says, well, you know that my armies are like your armies. Like, we're good, okay? Except, why don't we should check with God first. We should check with the Lord. And don't you have any prophets? And so Ahab calls in these prophets, and he calls in 400 prophets, and they come in. Oh, you're going to be successful. Oh, go to battle. You'll be successful. But you know, Jehoshaphat's not okay. He's like, seriously, do you have any people who are actually prophets of God left? He doesn't say the word Lord, he says Yahweh. He says that actually both times. Yahweh, the name of God. Don't you have any of those left? I mean, look at that guy. He's got iron horns. What is up with that? Don't you have any prophets of God left? And he says, well, okay, Ahab says, I do have one, but I don't like him. He always says bad things about me, and I just don't like him. And Jehoshaphat says, don't say such things about the prophet of God. Let's hear what he has to say. So they call him, and his name is Micaiah. And Micaiah comes in, and I always kind of picture Micaiah, at least definitely as a high schooler, I pictured him as kind of this like lone swordsman who, you know, walks in and everybody's against him, but he's completely confident in himself. And he comes in and he's warned by the guard, hey, all the other prophets are saying this, you should say it too. And he comes in, and King Ahab says, should we go to war with Ramoth Gilead? And Micaiah says, oh yes, you should go to battle. You will surely be victorious. I mean, I don't know exactly how he says it, but Ahab recognizes he's being sarcastic, and he tells him, how many times do I have to tell you, tell me the truth? And he says, okay, this is what really happens. I saw a vision. What I saw was a country without a king, sheep without a shepherd. You're going to go and you're going to die. And then he continues, and this is the part that many people get stuck on as they read this passage. I want to get it right, so I'm going to read it to you if you don't mind. It's found in verses 19 and following. Micaiah continued, therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne with all the multitudes of heaven standing around him on his right and on his left. And the Lord said, who will entice Ahab into attacking Ramoth Gilead and going to his death there? Well, one suggested this and another that. Finally a spirit came forward, stood before the Lord, and said, I will entice him. By what means? The Lord asked. I will go and be a deceiving spirit in the mouths of all his prophets, he said. You will succeed in enticing him, said the Lord. Go and do it. So now the Lord has put a deceiving spirit in the mouths of all these prophets of yours. The Lord has decreed disaster for you. The question is this, does the Lord putting a deceiving spirit in the mouths of the false prophets make God a liar? And again, the answer is no. All right? Now, first off, just to clarify, God is acting, this idea of enticing Ahab to go to his death, is God is acting as the righteous judge who is looking at this man who is a murderer and a thief and an abuser of his powers and saying his time has come, he needs to end his reign. And God has the right to judge over us. Secondly, we need to understand that just because God allows something doesn't mean that God is actually accomplishing it. All right, and in the Hebrew mindset, they recognize the reality that God has the ability to say no to any particular action. And so in that sort of way, you could almost say that God does allow things to happen that are evil. But on the other hand, we talked about this whole idea of evil and suffering, how God gives us the free will to make a decision. And when we make a decision, he allows us to experience the consequences for that. Because it is more evil for him to say, no, I'm going to force you into doing what I want you to do, than for him to say, I love you enough to allow you to make bad decisions that will hurt other people. And it's the same with the lies. All right, these false prophets were acting as liars. They engaged in the act of lying. And so what does God do? He utilizes their actions of lying in order to bring about the end. Secondly, we need to understand that God doesn't actually lie in this passage. There is no lying at all, because God sends Micaiah in there to clarify exactly what's happened. In fact, there's kind of like this warning to both Jehoshaphat and Ahab about the dangers of listening to false prophets. That if they had paid attention, they would have realized, don't listen to false prophets. It's dangerous, and God's intention is that you go into this battle, you will fail, and Ahab will die in the midst of it. And so where's the lie in that? God is very clearly conveying the truth to both of these kings. All right. And lastly, as I talked about, God's ability to utilize people's evil, people's sin to accomplish his own ends does not make him the author of that sin. That doesn't mean he supports it, doesn't mean he wants it, doesn't mean he likes it, yet he can utilize it. Consider Jesus. All right, the whole world arrayed itself out against Jesus to stop him from accomplishing his goal. All right, and they did everything they could, even trying to kill him, and yet it was by their very act of rebelling against God and trying to stop Jesus that actually accomplishes God's plan in the midst of that. And so it's the same way. God does not agree with, he does not want people to sin, yet he is in power and able to use that to accomplish good. And thus God is not lying in this situation. He is utilizing people's own false their false prophet, they're lying to accomplish his own ends, his own goals. So God cannot lie. Consider Numbers 23:19. It says, God is not human that he should lie, not a human being that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? Everything he says, he accomplishes. You can go into the New Testament and see an even clearer picture of how God does not lie. Hebrews 6:17, because God wanted to make the unchanging nature of his purpose very clear to the heirs of what was promised. He confirmed it with an oath. He's talking about the promise to Abraham. God did this so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled to take hold of the hope set before us may be greatly encouraged. See, the reality is that nothing restrains God, nothing except his own unchanging holy character. There's nothing out there that says that is controlling God and holding him back from lying except his own character that says, I will not lie, I do not lie. And thus, because he is unchanging in his nature, we know that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that he will not lie, and that means he cannot lie. And so no, God cannot lie. And those attempts to make it look like the Bible is contradicting itself simply means people do not understand the theology of God or are looking at the whole picture of the scripture well. I'd love to continue these conversations. If you have more thoughts or questions about it, you think I didn't cover something well, you want to continue the debate, I'd love to talk with you some more about it. So you know how to get a hold of me. Say something in the comments or send us an email. Check us out at the Pleasant Hill Church website. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.